the room. Mike, could you stop your screen? Or okay, great. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Good. Hey, how you doing, buddy? How's everything?
Everybody knows that you're my favorite Met of all time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I see you more back before the pandemic. I see you more often than most of my family. But of course, I've never had anybody in my family as successful as you. First things first, this morning, Hank Aaron passed away, and I saw you on Twitter, obviously as another baseball great, and especially as an African-American, pitcher. What are your thoughts about Hank? You've obviously met him over the years, and your thoughts about him.
That's a tough loss, definitely. And as I tweeted out, to me, he was definitely, and it says a lot, he was a better person, player. And what I mean by that, he was the same guy every single day. And I got to meet him in '84, my rookie year, 19 years old. And he was one of the guys that I used to watch play a lot because growing up in Tampa, we only had one game a week and we always got the Braves on the radio or on TV. Right. And he was my dad's favorite player. And the thing about Hank was later on when my dad got sick, my dad had dialysis, he was doing dialysis for a while with kidney failure. And then all-star games, Hank would be there and he'll always ask, how my dad doing? And I would call my dad and get him on the phone with Hank, and Hank would at least say hello and cheer him up a little bit. He would be sadly missed. And I remember when I was playing the Mets, I used to always look forward to going to play the Braves to see Hank before games and chat with him. And, obviously baseball lost a legend, but just a good guy.
Yeah, in my house downstairs looks like the old Steiner sports store with so many autographs on the wall. So in one corner I got Hank, and in the other room I got the picture of you, Darryl, and Mike Tyson autographs, which I love.
That's a good company you got me in right there.
Three of the greats of the 1980s. So speaking of the Mets, obviously Steve Cohen bought the team. The Wilpons are gone. I know that Darryl didn't particularly care how he was treated. As a former Met, what are your thoughts about Steve Cohen buying the team and maybe some of the relationships you had over the years with the Wilpons? Because I would think that with Steve Cohen being a fan, he's going to want to bring obviously a lot of the greats back and more involved with the team.
Oh, definitely. The Wilpons, obviously, unfortunately, didn't get with the one title. I never had a problem personally with the Wilpons. I was a little upset in '94 when they wanted to cut ties, but I completely understand. But I never had any problems with them. With Steve Cohen coming in, I think it's great, not only for the Mets, because I'm always a Met at heart, but just baseball in general. And he grew up as a fan, so I think he's going to do a lot of things for the organization and for the fan base. And like you mentioned, I think it's great bringing the old timers back, like for the '86 team, the '69 Mets, guys who won. I think it'd be great for the fans and great for the organization. I remember when I joined the Yankees, and by no means, I don't think he's going to copy the Yankees or I'm going to say copy the Yankees. But I remember going to spring training in '96 with the Yankees, and they had DiMaggio, they had Yogi, they had Reggie, they had Goose, they had all these guys. It was great because you could pick their brains as players, and also the fans got opportunity to take pictures with these guys and see them. And I think with the Mets, I think it'd be a great thing. I know they brought, and nothing against Piazza or Franco, which is great guys and good friends of mine. I know the Mets will bring those guys in for a week or whatever, which is great. But I like to see more of the '86 guys, the '69 Mets, even the '73 team, bring those guys back. I think it'd be great for the players and also great for the fans.
Yeah, Steve Cohen on Twitter asked, what should be done? They're putting a statue of Tom. Hopefully, one day there'll be a statue of you. I opine there also should be a statue of Bob Murphy outside. What's your take on the black jerseys? Because that's one thing that Steve Cohen wants. And I the black jerseys, once in a while, it's a nice little thing, but I just didn't like them.
I remember the old equipment manager, Charlie Samuels, brought those black jerseys in after, I had retired. And I said, man, where's those jerseys before time? Because I just like different shades and being a pitcher, very superstitious. So I think if they wear the black jerseys and they get on a win streak, keep wearing them. But if they wear the black jerseys, they lose 4 or 5 games.
Whatever happened to the biopic movie? Were they going to do a movie about you? Because I've read your book and whatnot, but were they supposed to do a biopic?
Yes. Actually, after '96, we signed a contract with Warner Brothers. It went into production. I met Denzel Washington, who was going to play the character. We had a ghostwriter come down to Tampa. I showed him my neighborhood I grew up in, my high school, Lily Park, and so on. We got paid for the deal, and about a month later, it just disappeared. And I guess that's a whole new era for me to learn. They say, unfortunately, it happens to get new projects that come up. But now we're back in talks again with different companies and trying to shop it around and do a documentary. I think it'd be something great to help, not only for as the young kids, but just trying to reach everybody, just share my life experiences, the good, the bad, and, everything that's been going on in my life.
Of course, everybody knows you from, 86, but of course your best season was 85. But something was very, very special about that team. And of course, everybody looks at that team and said, they should have won in 88, only having one world title. And also you guys competed when there was no wild card.
That's right.
You had a wild card, you would have made it in 84, you would have made it in 85, you would have made it in 87. But for you, where did the team start unfolding where it was no longer that dominant team? I mean, because to me, I always tweet with Lenny Dykstra on Twitter, and I still the Juan Samuel deal. I actually have over here. I have a Juan Samuel jersey, Mets jersey from '89. I have a home jersey, game worn, that I jokingly said we should have a bonfire with. But I refused to burn something I paid like $100-something for. But where do you think the team stopped becoming, started to change and no longer was dominant and wasn't have that same magic as it did in 86?
Yeah, I think you're right. Had there been a wild card teams back then, it would have made it a lot because like in 85, we won 98 games and had to go home. Obviously, the best teams, once you get to the playoffs, is always the hottest team that wins. And not to justify anything or take anything away. Like in 88, I thought we definitely should have won that year. We dominated the Dodgers during the regular season. Unfortunately, they beat us in the postseason. And for me personally, I think it started changing in 87. Started getting rid of a lot of guys that played big fighters, not only on the field but in the clubhouse. Started with the Kevin Mitchell trade, in my ideas.
Right.
I'm a good player with Kevin Reynolds, but certain guys, they're great guys, but New York ain't for everybody. And so the chemistry started changing. On paper, it looked like we had a better team, but for his heart and coming together and want to be in New York and connecting with the fans, it started changing. And then, as you mentioned, the Juan Samuel trade. I mean, my God, nothing against Samuel, but that was horrible. And not only the trade, then they put him in center field.
Right.
And that just started changing everything. I mean, you got rid of Dykstra and McDowell for, a top reliever, top center fielder for Juan Samuel, who was the second baseman. It was great, 84, 85, but at that time, it started going bad. And then I remember, I want to say 91 and 92, I'm not sure. We brought in Eddie Murray, Willie Randolph, Bonilla, Saberhagen. I think that was great, but at the time, I think Randolph and Eddie Murray, great guys, super nice guys, but I think they were towards the end of their career. And things just started changing. I mean, we lost a lot of games. We had a lot of injuries, but things just started changing. The whole chemistry started changing a lot. And I think the Samuel trade probably really, really started for me.
Well, yeah, Darryl left after 90. I want to say 90 was his last season because that was the year when they fired Davey and they brought in Bud. And then, it's funny, as a kid, I was 18 at the time, they made it out to be that Darryl wanted to go home. But when you read some of the stuff that went on, it was Frank Cashin just didn't want to offer him the $3 million a year.
Yes, it started in spring training that year. Remember, him and Keith got into a big thing, and it was all about the contract and trying to go. And I think it got personal with Darryl. I remember I got a call from a good friend, Meat Chasky, called me and said Darryl signed with the Dodgers. I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it because I know there was talk about it, but I never thought that day would come. And it was one of the things the franchise definitely changed at that time, unfortunately, because he was basically the face of the Mets at that time to me. But I never thought I would see that happen, and it just wasn't the same for me personally after that.
Yeah, and replacing him with Vince Coleman wasn't exactly you can't replace that like that. I mean, Vince Coleman, a great guy on base and whatnot, but that's a totally different ball player.
Totally different.
In terms of your career, what was the better moment for you? Was it the no-hitter, winning the 86 World Series, maybe winning the 96 World Series? What's the top moment?
Oh, man, that was very special, and they had their own meetings. But winning the World Series in 86, I mean, after my third year, I went from Rookie of the Year to Cy Young World Champs. And winning it in New York and sharing it with the fans was definitely one of the greatest moments for me as a team. For the individual accomplishment, I would probably say the no-hitter, only because the meaning behind that. My dad taught me the game of baseball. We used to go all the games with him. I talked to him at every start. And then he was battling kidney failure. He had been on dialysis for 15 years.
Right.
And the day that I pitched no hitter, I was actually supposed to go home to be with my father, who was having open heart surgery. The next day, I decided he would probably want me to pitch. Turned out to pitch the no hitter. My dad never made it home from the hospital. He never passed away, but the last game he saw me pitch was that no hitter, and it made it that much special.
Somebody had a question. It's always sticks in my crawl about a certain player, but what do you think of Greg Jeffries? You know, I always joke when it comes to baseball card collecting, which we'll talk about a little. I got a question about that.
Yes.
When it comes to baseball card collecting, people buy, the superstars, whether it's NBA or MLB, the newest prospects and whatnot. And I always jokingly say, I don't do that because of Greg Jeffries. And, as a kid going to the local Woolworths, which nobody knows what a Woolworths is anymore, and trying to find get a Greg Jeffries card. He was the second coming of Ty Cobb. But what really happened with him? Because I know that Lenny said some bad things about him. What was he like as a teammate?
Greg, he was a great guy. I mean, great friend. I'm sure he said some things he regretted. I think when he first came up, we heard about this guy being a great hitter, switch hitter. When he first came up in '88, he was the best hitter I've seen, from both sides of the plate, good line drive hitter, compact hitter. And I think the one mistake he made was when we was traveling, he was hot, the team was struggling, and he told Charlie Samuels, our equipment manager, he didn't want his bats, but the other guy's bats. They had to start rub off on his bats. And that's where it all started. Right. We got to St. Louis, and Mike Dowell called a meeting before the game. He taped all Jeffrey's bats up, put them in the middle of the clubhouse, and set them on fire. And to get further, Jeffrey went back to the paper and said, those guys are just jealous of me. He only been out for like 2 months. And I felt bad for him because I'm sure he said a lot of things he regretted. But he was actually a decent guy. But unfortunately, it didn't work out for him at that time, and because of things that were said, and then it just got worse and worse. For guys cut the suits, and a lot of things happened on the road.
Yeah, talk says there was a lot of bullying of him, that he didn't really handle himself correctly, and that led to some bullying. But like you said before, not everybody's made out for New York.
That's true. That's very true. Like you mentioned earlier about Vince Coleman coming in to replace Darryl. Vince was great in St. Louis. Benny was great in Pittsburgh. Those guys come to New York, and it's a totally different ballgame. Dealing with the media, dealing with the fans. And I think coming to New York, if guys can understand, basically, if you have a bad outing or perform bad, the fans or the media, they're getting on your performance, not necessarily you as a person. And I think if you can separate the two, I think guys would be better off coming to New York.
Here's a question somebody asked, which I've asked you at a Steiner event with Darryl many years ago. It sticks in my crawl, the '88 NLCS Game 7. I've heard it from Lenny. I've heard from so many people. You should have been the starter of Game 7. Ron was a great pitcher, but when it came to Game 7s, he just, between that and the '86 World Series, that wasn't his thing. Were you confident coming in from the bullpen in '88, as a starter? Was it really hard to just switch in and try to salvage that? Because you guys were down, I think, 6-0 in Game 7, and you came in, and what was it like?
It was tough. And, looking back at it now in hindsight, you think that probably should have started Game 7. Davey had confidence in Ronnie. He wanted me to hoping the World Series against Oakland on regular rest, and it didn't turn out that way. And coming in out of the bullpen, you're down 6 runs. There's no room for error. You basically got to try to shut the door to give your team a chance to get back into the game. So you just got to come in. The mindset is that you come in and just look at it as every inning is like the main inning and just go as long as you possibly can to keep the team in the ball game. But it was tough because before that, only been on the bullpen maybe once or twice. And no, actually, that was my first time I took on the bullpen, I believe. In '89, the next year, I had an injury. I came in out of the bullpen. But coming in out of the bullpen the first time and then the playoff, and that attitude was very tough mentally. But you just got to go as long as you can, as hard as you can.
When you were in the minors and you didn't really spend that long of a time, in '83, Davey brought you up for the AAA World Series. But when you were in the minors, did you know that you were going to be as dominant in the major leagues?
Oh, not at all. What's amazing was I was very fortunate to have in '82 I got drafted. I started in Kingsport, Tennessee, and Davey Johnson was like a roving instructor.
Right.
And I remember I was having a side day, throwing the bullpen, and Davey came over and he challenged me. He goes, "Let me see you throwing down and away." I did that. Let me see what throwing up it is. Let me see a curveball down away. Let me see a hard curveball. He's challenging me. I was doing it. The next year I go to Lynchburg, and I start out 4-3. And they wanted to send me down to low A, and we had a pitching coach, John Cowboy, say, "We're not going to send him down. We'll have him miss the start, and we'll work on some stuff." And we didn't work on anything. We just talked about the mindset of pitching. And he talked to me about pitching inside. And just that talk that I had at missing the start, I ended up going 19-4 the rest of that year. And after I went like 9-4, every start, they said, one more start, you're going to double A. It never happened. The end of our season, I got called to AAA. Dave was the manager. I pitched three great games for him in the playoffs, and then we won the World Series. And he said, wherever I manage next year, you're going to be on my team. So I'm thinking, wow, at least I'll be in AAA, 19, whatever. And George Bamberger resigned. Davey got the job. And I was in instruction league, and Davey was there. I said, Davey, remember what you told me? He goes, oh, don't worry about it. You're coming to camp. I got invited to spring training as a non-roster player. And after every start, they may even say, oh, he's probably going to double A or AAA because Frank Cashin in the front office, because of my age, they didn't feel like they want to rush me or whatever. And so me, like a little kid, I was running Davey's office, showing the paper. I said, hey, this I'm going to double A or AAA. I said, don't worry about it. You're going to make a team. Just go out and pitch. The last day of spring training, we played the Tigers in St. Petersburg, top of 15. He came up and said, congratulations, you made the team. And I remember telling my dad at that time, I had no goals set. I just wanted to stay healthy, have a long career. My first start was in Houston. I got the win. And my dad said, son, what do you think? I said, I should win a lot of games. My next start in Chicago, I got knocked out in the third inning. And my dad asked me the question. He goes, so what do you feel? I said, I don't think I'm ready. But I just showed you how the game humbled you. So it took about probably 8 or 9 starts before I felt like I really belonged at that time.
Yeah, the story with Frank was, I think that he was hesitant because of what happened to Tim Leary in '81 when they rushed him out. Well, I still don't even think they rushed him out, but he played, started in Wrigley, got injured, and that was the end of Joe Torre, because Joe pushed to have Joe Torre got fired at the end of the season. Mm. But when you look back at it now, do you think that, at your age, were you maybe rushed, were you better off more seasoning, or, I knew what I was like when I was like 18 years old, and I don't think I could have handled myself at all. I don't think at 28 sometimes I could have handled myself at all. Being around. But do you look back at it now?
Maybe back at it, I wouldn't have done anything differently on the field. On the field, I thought time was right. I think I was ready. Honestly, the way you use pitchers now is a little different. They said, they think that the way I started off like the innings pitch, even in the minor leagues, my first year. Going through after a lot of innings, a lot of pitches, had some been done differently with pitch longer, but at that time, that was the mindset. When you start a game, you want to finish that game, and that's just who I was. So for that, I wouldn't do anything differently. Off the field, I definitely wasn't mature enough, ready yet. I think at that time, I got caught up in the limelight in New York City, and it just, ran from there. So when you say about being mature and not ready for more seasoning, off the field, yes, I could definitely use more seasoning. On the field, I would have done it no other
way. Which pitch of yours do you think was better? Was it the fastball or the curveball?
I think I'll say my curveball. Only reason I say that because I was able to change speeds with it. I felt confident that I could throw it at any time in the count. And my fastball was like, they always talk about hard to throw, but I use my fastball mostly to set guys up with the high fastball. And then with my pitch, I want to get you out with the curveball. I felt like I could throw it at any time in the count and just change the speeds with it with the bigger throws.
I see latest now. How is that Project 2020 thing going with Topps? There was a whole big thing where, I don't know if people know, but it was a big collectible boom where they took some artists and made some reproductions of like your 85 Topps card. And I saw you signing them and autographs. I mean, how has that been? It's funny to see that come out and become very, very popular.
Yes, that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing that. Got to meet a lot of different artists who came out with it. Had a lot of fun with it. Reconnected with a lot of fans, new fans, and some fans that followed my whole career. Had a great time with it. Unfortunately, at the end, there was some problems with my son that it didn't turn out well, but it definitely started well. Had a lot of fun with it, and hopefully next year we can continue doing it.
Yeah, I think they're announcing they're going to do something for the 70th anniversary of Topps, and there was one card in particular I should have bought it, but it was you with a surgical mask on, and your rookie card with a artist drawing with a surgical mask, which I thought was kind of funny during the pandemic. In terms of pitching for the Yankees, did you find it strange when George got you signed up with the team and trying to make a comeback after the whole 94-95 season?
Oh, man, I thought it was great because after 94, the Mets wanted to cut ties, and I still love New York. I want to make it right with the fans, and I wanted to continue my career in New York. with the Mets. But once the Wilpons said they felt that we should, separate and go different ways, I understood, but it was tough. It hurt.
Right.
And this time I get an opportunity to continue my career in New York, which I was just overwhelmed by that. And the thing about it, growing up with the Mets, you actually hate the Yankees. I mean,
Right.
just because of the two New York teams. And
Right.
I would never see myself pictured in the Yankees uniform. So when I signed with the Yankees, I remember the first time going to the minicamp they had, putting that uniform on. I must have spent an hour in the mirror just looking at it, trying to get used to the Yankee way. But I remember going to talking with George. He said, "Stay healthy, stay out of trouble. You should win a lot of games." And I remember that year I started out 0-3.
Right.
And after the third loss, we walked out of the stadium. I walked out with my wife, and I said, "There's Mr. Steinberg. How you do?" So when we got close, I said, "Hey, boss, how you doing?" Like, you be my wife. He goes, "Hey, old man, effing game." So, and that was just George. But at the end of the day, you get him in your corner. He did so much for my family, so much for my little league ballpark, and a lot of things in Tampa. And it's trying to be great. I think at that time it was one of the best organizations, just the way everything was ran. And he always puts you in a great position to succeed. So it was a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm always a man at heart, but my time I spent with the Yankees was a great time as well.
What do you think of pitching these days, especially with the pitch counts? Because, I have a theory that sometimes the pitch counts actually increases the likelihood of injury. And I remember when you were pitching, was it 93 when you hurt your shoulder? There was a game where you pitched like 140 pitches and they thought that was excessive and that caused you shoulder trouble.
Oh, definitely. As you mentioned, I think now pitchers that are going 5 innings, 100 pitches, they're taking them out. There's more injuries, more Tommy John surgeries. And I think a lot of that has to do with mechanics. The game I got hurt was, so normally in spring, I think it was Buddy Harrison first managing game. Normally in spring training, you may throw 5 or 6 innings, get your pitch count to maybe 80 pitches. And plus the weather's a little different. I remember the game against the Phillies, it was opening day, it was a light drill, I threw like 150 some pitches, pitched a complete game. And I never felt the same after that. And in September, I was having surgery. I tore my rotator cuff and my labrum. And I was never really the same after that. I felt good throwing, but some days it's just so hard to make that start. And then between starts, you got to do so much work to get ready for that next start. So after that, I was just never really the same.
What are your thoughts on the designated hitter and bringing it to the National League? I mean, you're mainly known for being a National League guy, but I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, I think right now it would help the Mets out because Dom Smith could get his at bats. But what do you think about it?
You're right. I'm a Met, like I say. And I think having a DH would be great for the Mets. It definitely benefit them as well. Me personally, my days I didn't have the DH, and I'd rather not see the DH. That's the difference between an National League and American League. I like the National League style of baseball better because it's more strategy, the double switch, fun, hit and runs, different things. But now, in our days, the way the game is played, there's things about the home run and strikeouts. So right. I think Brandon DH in the Senate last year wasn't too bad. And so I would be in favor for Senate DH now.
This is another 86 question. How are you sure that Mike Scott was scuffing the ball? I met Mike Scott at one of those signings at Hofstra, and we joked about it. And, he swears up and down he never scuffed the ball. But why do you guys think that he did?
It's funny. He's right. He never scuffed the ball. We found out it was a catcher. I don't actually scuff the ball with a shake guard. And I know for a fact the ball was scuffed because I pitched against Mike Scott. Like game 1 of the NLCS, I pitched against Mike Scott, and the balls were scuffed in the same spot every time. And I tried to use it, I didn't know how to use it the way he did, but the ball was definitely scuffed 100%. But he's right. He wasn't the one scuffing it. We found out later on because Alan actually did on his shin guard.
That I never heard about before. So Mike was right. He didn't scuff the ball. Somebody else did. But at least he knew that the ball was scuffed.
He knew, for
sure. Here's a funny thing. What do you think about Citi Field? Because I belong to a lot of those Mets alumni, I'm Mets fans groups on Facebook and whatnot. And what are your thoughts about Shea Stadium? I mean, sitting about 10 feet away from me are 2 Shea Stadium seats, but I don't know. When you see Citi Field, I mean, to me, it's an amazing place. But what are your thoughts about Shea? Because to me, what I remember as a kid was it wasn't, it was a dump. It was our dump, but, not as nice as the stadiums we have today.
Oh man, I love Shea Stadium because I mean that's all I knew at the time. Pitching it, like you said, it was kind of scary. Sometimes going that night games going to the from the dugout to the clubhouse in the tunnel, you might see a rat or something run by. So it was a little different. But Shea, like I said, Shea was Shea. It was our place. To me, it was home. I loved it. I think Citi Field was nice. I would love that pitch at Citi Field also, but Shea Stadium, man, a lot of great memories there. There was no better feeling than pulling into the ballpark, seeing all the fans there, and then big crowds, curtain calls, the wave, all this stuff. Just a lot of fun. City Field now, everything honestly is about corporate Americans taking over a lot of stuff. But it's nice. I like City Field better than Yankee Stadium, me personally.
Yeah, these days, the new Yankee Stadium, I'm not a big fan of it. But speaking of Shea Stadium, the 86 NL East clincher, you pitched a complete game. And that's like the last time I think in New York where the fans stormed the field. So you get the last out. I think it was a throw to Keith at first.
Yes.
And I remember seeing you, you're like, I mean, when you see the crowd, what do you, I'd be scared, all these people what do you do? I mean, you knew like the first thing you go is go to the clubhouse. I mean, what happens in a situation like that? Not that we have it anymore. It's been 30 some odd years since we had something like that.
And hopefully we get one soon. But the situation like that, I never facing Chico Walker was the hitter. I was definitely going for the strikeout because you just felt like you don't strike this guy to get it. But once he hit the ground ball to Wally, he threw the ball out, got him out, and celebrating right there, and then all the fans around the field. It was fun but scary at the same time when everybody just caught on the field. And once the fans got on the field, they're there to celebrate with you, but it's scary. So you just try to get away and run the clubhouse and just celebrate with your teammates. But it was a tremendous feeling because the year before we had came so close, winning another game, we had to go home. So our only goal was making it to the postseason, win the World Series, and accomplish that right there and doing it in New York in front of our home fans. Tremendous feeling.
Last question. What do you think of what were your thoughts that Game 6 World Series? You're in the clubhouse. You're down. You guys, did you think you were going to lose or?
Oh man, it's funny. You're talking literally the game's not over to the last shot made. But to be honest with you, a lot of us was in the clubhouse. I was one of them. I thought it was over. Just like looking back at it, like man, how could it come to this? You're trying to replay what could have been differently. Obviously, I pitched poorly my two starts, so I'm reminiscing about that. And then also, get the hit, Carter gets the hit, Knight gets the. I mean, Kevin Mitchell actually had his shirt off in the clubhouse. He had to throw his shirt on, go up and pitch it, got the hit, wild pitch. Obviously, the ball that he hit for 25 his legs. Just unbelievable what happened. And then, if you remember, Game 7 was down a couple runs, but because of what happened in Game 6, we knew it was going to come back to win.
Yeah, everybody forgets that Fernandez was the unsung hero Game 7 because Ronnie didn't have it. They were down 3-0. He comes in. I think he pitches like a couple innings, and voila, they come back.
Oh, that was awesome.
Doc, your time with me is over, but I appreciate you. I hope to see you soon.
Yes, sir.
This pandemic thing has put a kink in my memorabilia show appearances. Anytime I see you or in the area, I always have to say hello.
Oh, definitely. You're good.
Jason
man.
always has to say hello, and next time you see Jason, he's almost as tall as me now. So.
It is, sir. I look forward to seeing you guys, and thanks for having me. Well, it's great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
I'll see you soon. Take care.
All right, thank you, buddy.
Always great to see Doc. Like I said, I see him more often than I see most of my family, and